Okay. So it don't matter because we're going to go in when we go in.
I'm Jason Gilmore.
I'm Kelvin Crigler.
And this is Elephant in the Room, where we speak on the unspoken regarding culture, news, and the church through a modern Christian point of view.
Right. Now that you know what it is, let me tell you what it isn't. It's not a Bible study, even though we will often share biblical passages and biblical principles. And it's not a bash session, even though we will be calling some stuff trash. I mean, just ain't no ways around it. But we just figured, hey, we all see the elephant, so let's talk about it. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Man, look. I was online. Actually, I was talking to Trinity, my wife, about just the whole chat GPT and just some of the new scary responses. I even saw on one of the late night talk shows where he was engaging the chatbot, and the chatbot like got real with him, like, "Oh, I will destroy your whole world, son." Like, I will, and it's artificial intelligence,
right,
like threatening him.
Right.
And have we not seen Terminator?
Right. These movies, they
never
well.
end well.
I just saw Megan the other night, and it just...
I've been meaning...
Never is. It's on Peacock now.
Okay.
So we watched it at the crib, and it never ends well.
And again.
Never ends well. I mean, the AI thing is weird because on one hand, I don't want to go down in history as that horse owner that was mad that, that they're making cars now. Like, oh, this will never work. Machines that, like no one's going to want to ride that.
Automobile.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. So I feel like a lot of the things that come out that are new, we're always afraid of them initially. We're always, this is going to ruin everything, and then it doesn't. And then it comes down to like, hey, it helps you with these things that you like. And it takes care of these problems that, like my man said in Glass Onion, you get rid of the things that people didn't care about anyway. You destroy the things people didn't care about. So now people don't see you as a threat, and then you become a threat, and so I feel like I don't want to be that person, but at the same time, it's really scary when you get into these deep fakes, and all that kind of stuff. I have a friend who works in visual effects, and he was telling me about how they're really good with deep fakes, and they're getting a lot of money for it. They're getting a lot of opportunities, and he's doing it. But at the same time, even he's kind of like, because now, I mean, we're going to get to a point where, we're going to be able to, they can emulate your voice
completely.
We can put you on video doing stuff.
Yes.
Hey, we got you doing this thing here.
At that time.
And you're like, no, I didn't. I wasn't there. Well, we got you on video that sounds like your voice. We got your fingerprint, whatever. And so you're going to be able to, there's going to be a lot of crimes that are going to happen. A lot of people being falsely accused of things. And you really can't prove you didn't do it because we got you on tape doing it.
You can fabricate reality as you see fit. And then, we were talking before on how it's affecting the music industry, where now you got a computer writing the song, the lyrics, the beat. And then there are all of these servers who are just requesting that specific song. So, because I don't want to hate on new generation music, like just how the generation before me hated on mine. Like,
right.
There's the trend, but
everyone's always mad at the new thing.
On the other end, it's like, well, you see some of these numbers and these sales, and you're like, okay, how did they possibly get that? And now I'm seeing, okay, there were servers that are just requesting this on Spotify over and over. Like,
that's how that whack rap got 60.
There's no way.
I would say
60 million people.
It was nice to at least be validated, because I kept going, okay, I know this ain't for me. I know this ain't my thing, but I think I saw somewhere where somebody was saying they're really trying to replicate the human process, but without humans.
Artificial intelligence, or AI, is everywhere. It's now part of our conversations about education, politics, and social media. It's also become a hot topic in the art world. Programs that generate art using AI are widely available to the public and are skyrocketing in popularity. But what goes into these programs and the work that comes out are heavily debated in the arts community.
That's the part I will speak up on that scares me, is that when you get caught up in everything being perfect, and not to ruin Megan for you, but that's even the Megan thing. It's like this perfection that we all think we want, that hits all of our needs and takes care of all the things we want before we even know we need it. Yeah, it sounds great. But it's not great, because part of the thing about being human is that you are going to get your heart broken, right? You are going to make mistakes. You are going to trip and fall down the stairs. You are going to be wrong about things and have to deal with the aftermath. And that's how you grow. And so if we put ourselves in positions where those things aren't going to happen, well, now you've eliminated all the happy accidents. You eliminated the things where you get to learn more about yourself because you thought, oh man, I'm this and I'm that. And you learn you're not this or that, and now you can grow from it and become a better person. All that's getting stripped away for the sake of perfection, for the sake of efficiency,
sales,
profit, money. And I think that's,
if I'm an artist, do I really want to know that 60 million computers hit me up on Spotify and requested me by the record label?
Right.
Like, if I'm a pure artist and my desire is really to share this and get this out, and I don't know that I would come to terms with that.
Crazy. Artists may think they're big ballers.
Right.
And they don't know that their record did this unbeknownst.
The A&R is like, they love you, man.
You out here really thinking that you on top of the world.
No.
And no, you're not. You just got
people like you, and 60 million computers love you.
So, our podcast is called Elephant in the Room, and we are going to talk about an elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And one that is very common, especially in the Black community.
It's been hidden.
Which is this whole notion of the Illuminati. And, even Beyonce or Rihanna in particular, how, they come out with albums, and of course you got the people who love them, but then you got all the people who don't like them who are saying, oh, they're devil worshiping, and this means this, and they sold their soul, and this, that, and the other. So we just want to talk about that because that's a topic that keeps coming up. And, Kelvin, start us off. How do you feel about it?
So it's interesting because, I was saying before, like, I remember listening to some songs by Brand Nubian long time ago. And I'm just, listening to it and I'm not even thinking about it. And then I'm listening to the lyrics now and, they were very anti-Christian, and it wasn't just even pro-Muslim.
Right.
And it's different. It was one thing to be pro. It's another thing to actually start speaking against. Right. But even when I was listening, so I'm like, it is possible. It starts with the awareness to know it's possible for me to just listen to things for the beat or whatever and not even pay attention to what's being conveyed.
Right.
But on this scale, Jay-Z caught the same type of stuff when he was doing his On to the Next One and all of those, the symbolism. And
he literally called himself
as artists
for Jehovah.
Right. We know that there's some level of creativity. We know that those things, but on the same token, we know things aren't done accidentally.
Right.
They're not done like things are intentional.
Right.
If I have control of my music video, I control whether there is a bull or a goat being sacrificed.
Right.
And if I allow it, then what am I saying?
Right.
So it's really about what are the people, what are they saying? Right. And I think that's probably what's missing in, and I'll share after you chime in, on these conversations is, what are their intentions? What is it that they stand for? It's like, I can have all the I can have a cross on, yada, yada, yada. That cross may or may not mean for you what it means for me. And it really just comes down to, what do I believe? What are my values? What do I stand on? What do I attribute my success to? Right. Because if I'm saying one thing, but the symbolism is saying one thing, if I'm saying nothing and the symbolism is saying one thing, those two different things.
People using their biases and the people that they're not into,
pretty much,
and now they want to, instead of just saying, I don't like this person, I think they're overrated, whatever. They're a devil worshiper. That's why I'm not into him, and you're trying to take this higher ground. So that's my first thing. But I think on the flip side, I watched enough of these videos because there's a ton of these videos out here, and I do go down rabbit holes sometimes to where they make some great points. You know, there's some things where I'm going, yeah, that's not accident. Like you said, to your point. Now, maybe I didn't notice this. Maybe when I saw the video, I got distracted by the colors or the pretty girls or whatever, or I just, oh man, that song's jamming, and I didn't see these symbols. I don't know what those numbers meant because I'm not into that stuff. So you would have to tell me, and once you explain to me, and I look it up on my own, I'm like, oh man, that's right. Wow, I would have never, So I see both sides, but at the same token, I also think the third component to it is that I think we make it more complicated than it is. What I'm going to say is that I think there's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of demonic stuff, devil worship, whatever, that are simpler than we make them. And I use the example of that, in the music industry and other places, you've heard these stories about, you get invited to this party and you look in this room and people in here snorting coke, people in here having an orgy, people in here, and then at some point, you may be asked to partake in these things, right? And so if this is against your principles, and you're still like, well, it's not really what I do, but hey, these people are powerful. They're dangling my future and my dreams in front of me. Go ahead and just make this sacrifice, and then literally make this sacrifice, and then for the quote unquote greater good, right? To me, that's a bigger deal than any of this other stuff, because you can talk to me about, oh, I went to this concert and she said this thing, or I saw this image, but for most people, it's so over our heads, we're not going to know. I've been to a couple Beyonce concerts, and what I noticed at those concerts is that people are there doing whatever they was going to do anyway.
Right.
If you came there to get drunk or came there to get high, Beyonce is the soundtrack to you getting high. If Beyonce had never been born, you would have found somebody else to play this music so you can do what you came to do. So I don't believe it on the level that music's making me do stuff that I wouldn't do otherwise. I don't believe that's true. But I do believe that the music industry, like all powerful industries, creates an infrastructure in which demonic things are happening constantly to people.
Right.
And on multiple levels, to the fans, to the artists, to the people in control, whoever, they keep it going. And if you don't stand up to it, if you don't say, hey, this is not what I'm about, if you don't say, hey, this is not what I'm for, or I'm not going to take this stand. And we've heard of people who've been blackballed because they stopped and said, nah, man, I just came here to sing. I ain't doing all that junk. Y'all evil. You know what I'm saying? And then the evil people take offense to that and they put you in a case. So I just think overall, it's a much bigger picture than just, oh, look at those images. Look at that animal in the corner. Right. I think if we're going to really target this stuff as being demonic, we need to see the whole picture.
Yeah. I've heard two opinions, both by people that, I respect both of their opinions. One is Candace Bimbo and another, Jackie Hill Perry. And they aren't necessarily polarized, but they kind of differ. And for me, I'm kind of merging them both. Whereas Jackie is kind of like, when you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
And, for her conviction, she can't unsee it. And so for her, it's like, I can't deal with this anymore because I've seen too much and I know too much and this stuff is too real and too often we desensitize to justify.
Right.
And then on the other side, Candace brought up some interesting points where she's just talking about the racial element that really gets into from the evangelical structure, where it just seems like whenever it comes to anything regarding African spirituality or any of those elements, then it's always evil. It's always savage. It's always bad. It always seems like, the scapegoats just happen to be people of color. And when it gets into any of that element, then it's like, oh, all of a sudden, these Black women who are succeeding and doing all these things, it's evil. And they find a way to denigrate. And I'm like, I see both. And then I'm thinking about, in the scriptures when, some of the Christians had issues with eating food that were sacrificed to idols. And some of them are like, how dare you, clutching their pearls, like, son, they were about to, and then you got other people like, bro, I'm hungry. Right. I'm going to bless this food. I'm going to do the 5-second rule and we're going to keep it moving. And that's going to be that. And, Paul had to be like, yo, whoever is convicted in this, be convicted. And if you're not convicted, and then who are you to judge another person? And I think that's where the world comes is we need to not act like this stuff is not real and not intentional, but I can't hold my conviction to you and all of a sudden be like, this dude, Jason, you still listening to Rihanna? Like,
yeah, so moving along, definitely moving into I recommend. Yeah. And so I recommend is a section where we, Kelvin and I, share with you TV shows, movies, food, whatever, things that we've recently tried and want to recommend. I recently finished a 4-part series on PBS called Fight the Power. It's a documentary produced by Chuck D. And it basically walks you through the history of hip hop from, the very early origins with Kool Herc back in the day on up to today. And what I like about it is, we've seen hip hop documentaries before that have chronicled the history, but this one's broken up into parts, more so dealing with aspects of hip hop, whether it's political music, whether it was, its origins. And they really go deep talking about just how much that we already knew this, but just how much Ronald Reagan really was the devil. I don't care what nobody say. And I laugh a lot of times.
We need to make that a future elephant.
Man, because people talk
the black era and the truth behind it.
Man, people talk so much about, rap and, rap's not real music and and not so much now, but back in the early days when it was considered to be a fad and it's not going to be here long. And I always laugh because I think, had you not taken away our music programs in our schools, had you not, taken away our ability to partake and able to provide for ourselves, had you not taken these jobs out of these inner cities and forced Black people to live in these very poor communities, you might not have ever had to deal with rap. If you let kids be able to still play the trumpet all the time, you would have got a whole new generation of trumpet players.
Rap was a response.
That's pointed out frequently in the show is how much rap got vilified because they go into the whole, see Dolores Tucker and the complaints against, the misogyny in hip hop. And they're fair. Because one of the ladies that was speaking on there, she said, look, I was growing up in that era and I was like, man, they need to leave hip hop alone. She said, but now as an older, woman in my 40s or whatever, I go back and listen to some of that music that we was fighting for. And I'm like, dang.
We didn't have to get it from each other, but it was in the air. Eazy-E didn't give Boys in the Hood talking like that. It wasn't inspired by Too Short. It was that time. It was about to happen. And I had the angle because I had been in Oakland and I had been closely exposed to this real pimp and hoe game and just the lingo of it, the visuals of it, the reality of it. And I was studying it and I was, incorporating it in the music. And when I came out, no matter who was cursing in the later 80s and really talking about how it is from where they're from, they wasn't putting that pimp in it.
Terrible, So I think just, giving that full perspective on what hip hop has always been and what hip hop is and what hip hop can be. But also being fair to the fact that, hip hop has progressed and has not always been right, you know, and has not always been, but it came as an extension of people who did not have. And so they gave what they could give.
We just saw this really cool, and it's been out for a minute. We were just on HBO Max, just kind of cruising, and it was a soul food cook-off.
Oh,
and you know, we just were like, all right, we'll give it some time. And it's, you know, it's 8 contestants, and they're just doing soul food. But what makes it amazing is they give history behind the food. Like the judges and the, you know, host give history. They bring on these classic judges. They really just talk about the Black experience as it relates to soul food. So you're getting and you're looking at all these amazing recipes. But the thing that I love is that it's Black folk on there. So it's just like, what you over there cooking? What you like? It's so legit. And then there's these moments where they're talking about why they became a chef, and they're talking about the obstacles, and it just becomes tearful. Like, it's moments in there, me and Trey like, okay, I wasn't expecting to be all emotional. Like,
ready for that.
I was here for just the food, sir. Right. Y'all was not supposed to do this. So it was actually emotional. It was inspirational. It was really good. It was about eight episodes. So I'm looking forward. I hope they do another one. But yeah, it was really good. They had some classic judges on there. A lot of people, some chefs out of Harlem. So yeah, it was legit. So definitely.
All right. Well, I'm Jason Gilmore,
Kelvin Crigler,
and we are signing off from Elephant in the Room. Thank you for joining us.